The following program is intended as an educational program, not as investment advice or as a recommendation to buy, sell, or participate in any investment vehicle, product, offering, or strategy. Investment advisory services are offered through Turning Point Financial, a registered investment advisor. Any references to specific securities, investment vehicles, or strategies are intended only as examples, not as recommendations. All investments involve risk, including the possibility of losing money. Welcome to Money and Mission here on Holy Family Radio, WHYF, AM 720, where each week we talk about wealth management built on a foundation of biblical wisdom and principles. Do you ever wonder how your money and the things you own are actually helping you live out what you really feel called to in your heart? There's so much peace of mind when you sense that your money is aligned with your values and your convictions, as well as your financial goals. And there is so much potential for anxiety and worry and all that comes along with that when that alignment just isn't there.
That's right, but that can be easier said than done. There's so much financial information coming at us every minute of every day. It can actually be overwhelming. Terminology, ideas and philosophies, various competing principles, and of course, financial products and services. Keeping all of this information straight can be downright confusing and possibly even scary.
That's right. And when you're confused or if you're scared, you simply aren't making good decisions.
No.
And that can keep you from being all that God wants you to be, and it can hurt you pretty badly as well. Well, welcome to episode 79 of Money and Mission. I'm James Good.
And I'm Eric Tereo. Each week, in the first part of our show, we'll talk about some of the financial events so you'll have a better understanding of what some of the terminology and events actually mean.
And then part of the way through the show, we'll get to our weekly puzzler.
James's favorite part.
My favorite part, that's right. A weekly puzzler is just a brain teaser, and we'll share that with you. We never know if that's interesting to anyone but us.
That's
but
right.
We hope it'll be as interesting to you as it is to us.
Well, James, let's jump into our week in review. What's new this week?
Well, we are sitting here in the brand new Holy Family Radio studios.
Yes. Very exciting.
Well, it's the studio isn't brand new.
Brand new to us.
It's brand new to us. Yeah. I mean, on a typical week, we could rope Joe into this conversation, but there are only two mics here, and they're pointing in our direction. So Joe would have to be yelling. And
I'm waving at him, though.
You're waving, that's right, yeah. But it's interesting because I'm sitting here looking out the window into the parking lot of Trinity High School.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
And so whatever deal needed to happen to get Holy Family Radio here,
God intervened.
That's right. I guess a great big thank you to the folks at Trinity High School for helping to make this happen.
Yes.
As well.
And we're very excited to be here and happy to use this space.
That's right. It's a long parking lot.
It is. I snaked around and I was like, where are we going?
I had to park at the other end and walk all the way here.
Did you really?
I will not need the gym today.
See, they're saving you money. What more could you ask for?
That's right. What more could you ask for? Well, speaking of saving money.
Yes.
I don't know if it's actually savings or not, but they stopped making pennies.
That is news. And I've seen it taped up in some stores, too. New penny policy signs that are popping up.
What's the policy?
I didn't read it closely, but something they're going to round up or round down. And I was like, oh, boy, I don't really use cash, so.
That old give a penny, take a penny, I guess that is now gone.
Right.
Give a nickel, take a nickel.
Well, it costs a lot more than 1 cent to make a penny, right?
How much more? It costs, I think, 4 cents. It costs 4 cents to make a penny?
Almost. Yep.
We talk about inflation here on the podcast all the time. That is inflation, right? It costs 4 times as much to make a penny. 4 times!
No.
Unbelievable.
Where are we at when you can't even pinch your pennies these days?
Okay. That should be like the weekly puzzler, right? Something else. But we actually did that, though. What color is a penny? Do you remember that debate we had?
I do.
About whether pennies are brown or copper.
And I'm pretty sure I kind of won that one.
You kind of won. I thought I came out. Well, it's a moot point now.
Yeah.
We have to move on to a conversation about what color is a nickel.
But pennies remain legal tender. So.
Oh, they remain legal tender. They're
Yes.
just not making any more of them.
Well, it says here that there are over 300 billion pennies currently in circulation.
300 billion.
And are encouraged to be used, it says. So.
So the encouragement is, hey, we're not making these anymore, but please still use them.
Yeah, what would 300 billion pennies be if you just took that out of the money supply?
That's the weekly puzzler.
Mm-hmm.
Right. All right. Well, anyway, that story is a lot of fun, but the primary reason...
And they're auctioning, I see here, they're auctioning off the final pennies that were minted.
Yeah.
So that will be that should be good.
All right. Well, Toyota is opening a new battery plant.
They already have. They've already started production. Yep.
They already did? But
Yes.
producing the batteries.
Yes, they're starting up and running.
That was a $10 billion investment.
Yeah.
If I recall.
Yeah, I think that facility was about a 14 billion, and then they're pledging an additional 10 billion as well.
Yeah, you can read that story if you go out to Reuters. Reuters reporting on that. How many pennies is $10 billion? Okay, we didn't figure that out.
No, I didn't prep that.
That's right. But this is
But this is a big deal, though, right?
It is a big deal.
Yeah,
right?
about 5,000 workers.
That's right. So it's investment right here in the United States of America, which is
North Carolina.
That's right, which is what our president has been saying he's trying to accomplish.
Right.
Right? And so we'll see
whether they're American companies, foreign companies, we want to see that manufacturing here
That's
benefit
right.
our workers.
That's right. I had a conversation with someone this morning who said, he said, James, what do you think about EVs? And I said, well, I don't know. I have kind of mixed feelings about EVs.
Yeah.
I have like hybrid feelings.
Oh,
Oh my goodness. Okay.
Oh boy.
But no, this is a very big deal, and so this means jobs for people here in the United States. It means actual industrial production.
Yes, for sure.
Right here, and so that's good. But the Trump administration just rescinded EV tax credits.
Yes.
So how's the timing on that?
Well, they're also kind of easing fuel standards, and Toyota has been focusing on a quote-unquote hybrid approach where they're working, both on hybrid vehicles, which they kind of are leading the market on hybrids, and also as well as developing out the electric line of their vehicles.
Yeah. Well, keep watching, right? Maybe there will be more investment here in the States as we go along.
So even though they lost the credit, no one's going to stop buying altogether, certainly slow it down, but since they have the hybrids, they feel that they're positioned well moving forward.
Yeah. What's this story about Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent was announcing that, quote, substantial tariff relief on coffee and bananas.
That was actually the last story. If we were running out of time, I was going to throw that in because Joe always says, bring something positive. And you were talking about coffee getting hit all these months. So
that's right, because the price of coffee is way, way, way up.
Right. And then everyone said, well, the tariff's going to make our Starbucks go up and this and that. So I figured maybe a little bit of good news. I didn't dive deep into this article, but I did see some relief on coffee and bananas. So.
Well, I'm going to start keeping track and see if I can have a statistical average of the price of coffee and bananas.
A coffee index?
Yeah, coffee and a banana index, right? Price relative. The price relative of, coffee relative to bananas. All right, so we'll see how that goes.
And let's not forget, I think, the biggest story of the day.
Well, what was that?
The U.S. federal government is now back open after the longest shutdown in American history.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what does that mean? I mean, they're probably still arguing about a bill that will keep them open.
Well, yeah, they've certainly kicked the can down the road.
Right.
Because, yes, we're open and SNAP payments are going out and federal workers are going back to work, military getting paid, all that's good, but I kind of think we're going to be right back where we started in January.
Yeah. Just to, if you, for our listeners, to have a picture of kicking the can down the road, what happens in fiscal terms, right? Is you kick the can down the road.
They'll fund up to a certain point.
Yeah, you kick the can down the road.
And then that's when you hear on the news, the government's going to shut down.
That's right.
If they don't agree by this date.
But as the can is rolling down the road, right, after you kicked it, it gets to be bigger. Yeah, it gets a bigger can. And pretty soon you're down the road and there's the can and it's bigger than what it had been.
That's a 55-gallon drum.
Right, that's right. Now that means, when it's bigger, that means like, the national debt collects more interest. Stuff like that, right? And so you kick the can again and you keep kicking it until it's like too big to kick.
Yeah, and there's economic impact when it's shut down. I mean, I forget the number, 10 or 15 billion a day economic impact we were experiencing each day we were shut down.
Yeah, but the market still went up. Go figure. So the government,
we don't have enough time to
the government closes
that,
and the market goes up.
Yeah.
I mean, what's the market trying to tell us?
Mm-hmm. But I figured you'd be happy because at least you can start getting some of your statistics back.
Okay.
Now that the government's back open.
That's right. Joe never liked those statistics anyway, right? Because they were always depressing. Like the one about jobs. Every time they revise the jobs number, we have less.
Yeah.
And so we'll see. So now, we've been absent these statistics for almost 60 days, and it will be interesting to see what the revision looks like now. Oh. Hey, whatever we reported 60 days ago, oops!
It might look like a cliff.
Unbelievable, right? Mm-hmm. So what's this January problem? You had a note here about
the kicking the can down the road, that they're really just funding the government out until January. So
the can is so big at this point that it can only be kicked like 60 days out.
I mean, our budget's out of control. Our interest payments on our debt exceed our Department of War budget. I mean, wow. So any month or break of time that goes by, we're going to feel it.
Yeah, the Congressional Budget Office reported a number of years ago that the road we're on is unsustainable. And that was like 25 years ago.
We've been saying that for a couple years on the radio now.
So it's unsustainable, and here we are. Well, stay tuned, right?
Yep.
We'll try to keep reporting on things that we read about anyway. And but thanks for joining us here at the brand new Holy Family Radio studio.
That's right. We're going to take a quick break. You're listening to Money and Mission here on Holy Family Radio, WHYF AM 720.
Welcome back to Money and Mission here on Holy Family Radio, WHYF AM 720, where each week we talk about wealth management built on a foundation of biblical wisdom and principles. I'm James.
And this is Eric.
And we're co-hosting.
Yes.
Yeah.
Episode 18.
Episode 18. That's right. If you only remember one thing from our conversation today, we hope you'll remember that IRAs are a tool,
mm-hmm.
right? A financial tool. They're intended to hold money that is saved for retirement, as opposed to some other things that people could be doing with their IRAs. But IRAs are a tool. And, I think we had a listener who had said, I'd really like to hear some things about IRAs.
Yeah, so let's break it down for our listeners, James. What exactly is an IRA?
Well, yeah, let's talk about that. But I think I first of all want to just note that at last check, the IRS has these publications that talk about IRAs, and I think in total,
they're good bedtime stories.
Yeah, that's right.
Put you to sleep.
If you have trouble sleeping at night, you want to dig these out and read through them in detail, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, they total 130 pages altogether.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is a topic that is going to get very complicated very quickly. But we did have that listener who had said to us, hey, could you guys talk about IRAs? And because I don't think some of the people that we've referenced here on the podcast that they had IRAs, like the Ursuline sisters.
I think it was a little predated them.
It was a little, yeah.
Yeah.
The Ursuline sisters, but they had other financial tools.
Sure.
Right? I mean, Mother Teresa probably doesn't have an IRA, didn't have an IRA.
I'm sure they had an individual retirement account in a sense, but wasn't going through the IRS.
Not in the same way that we think about it here today. So, back to my earlier comment that an IRA is a tool. It's one of those things that details change around us as tax law changes and the economy that we live in change. The details may change, but the principles that we're talking about are really unchanging. Mm-hmm. And some of those principles can be applied, to an IRA or to any other types of investment accounts that people might have.
And like you said, it's a tool, right? Just a tool in the tool belt.
That's
it's not
right.
the end all, be all of saving, but when done well with proper planning.
That's right. That's right. And so we're gonna dig into that a little bit here, just because of the complexity of the topic. We're not going to have time to do more than a broad brush overview of some IRA topics here today, but we'll try to cover more on this topic as we go forward too. So, but because of the complexity, I was thinking we could probably talk for the rest of the month on this topic. Joe, could we talk all afternoon today? No. Okay. No. See, I actually wrote that down here on our script. Joe is going to say no. Somehow.
I didn't have a script.
Yeah, Joe didn't even have a script. That's right. So, but okay. So I'm sorry. Back to your question. We really went down a little tangent there. What exactly is an IRA?
Right.
Right.
Let's start at step one.
Yeah, that's right. Well, and it's an individual retirement account, and when I was first learning the business, a little over 30 years ago, there were references to an individual retirement annuity as well. But I think the most general way of thinking about an IRA is that it's an individual retirement account. And IRAs were first introduced, we'll cover some history here, right? But IRAs were first...
Went through some changes.
Mm-hmm. First introduced in the United States in 1974. And the whole point at the time was to have a tax-preferred savings vehicle. Congress was reportedly concerned that people who didn't have access to pensions would have a savings vehicle that could help them save up money for retirement years. So that's where this whole thing got started.
So outside of the workplace, you can have your own
that's right.
account. Mm-hmm.
That's right, yeah. And remember back in the 70s, pensions were really, really big deal.
I remember my grandparents had pensions from the American Can Company in Baltimore, but they've since went out of business.
Yeah, yeah. And my dad was actually a truck driver, and he was a teamster, and the company that he worked for had some kind of pension as well.
Because it's weird, as a little kid, I wondered how they kept bringing in money. They never left the house.
Yeah, that's right. The check just kept right on rolling. But that's what pensions were all about. But not everybody had a pension, and so Congress created this tax-preferred savings vehicle called an individual retirement account. And originally, everybody who was working, everybody who was drawing a paycheck and had a W-2 could make tax-deductible contributions into an IRA all the way up until they're age 70 and a half. So IRAs were originally set up so that everybody could make a contribution and have it be tax-deductible. When you have a tax-deductible contribution, the way that works, let's pretend you have $100,000 of income, and you would contribute $2,000 to a tax-deductible IRA.
Okay.
Well, after you did that, then instead of having $100,000 of taxable income, you would only have $98,000 of taxable income.
Mm-hmm.
So your contribution would be tax deductible in that way. It would reduce your taxable income.
For that year.
Mm-hmm. That's right. So that has implications, right? Now you've put money in this bucket or this box or whatever represented by the individual retirement account, and you received a tax deduction. So that means that...
Does that mean you pay taxes on it later? Or?
Later.
Yes.
Yeah, which is tax deferred,
mm-hmm.
right? Remember, I mean, the key word there is defer.
Not tax-free.
Not tax-free. No, you put it off until a later date, a later date in time. So...
Which is still very beneficial.
Which is still beneficial.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. But it's not, you're not getting away from it. You're putting it off until a later time.
Uncle Sam wants it in or out.
That's right. So then what happens, though, is whoever receives that money at that later time then is responsible to pay taxes on that money at whatever tax rate they happen to be in the year they get the money.
Mm-hmm.
So, as time has gone along, we have, everybody sits and tries to figure out, am I paying more taxes now or will I be paying more taxes later? Right? And there's a lot of moving parts.
It sounds like it can get complicated. So
that's right.
Let's talk about some of the history of IRAs.
Yeah, let's do that. But it sounds like a topic for, one of the CPAs we know.
Yeah, we'll bring them on. And
we'll have to bring some folks.
Or a little Q&A session for one segment.
That's exactly right. Mm-hmm. So, I'm sorry, what was the history?
Yeah, let's go over the history of it.
Right. So, yeah, we said 1974, this little tiny section of the tax code called ERISA. That was a joke. ERISA is not a tiny little section. It's like hundreds of pages long. So ERISA established these IRAs, again, as a tax-preferred savings option for people without pension. And initially, the contribution limit, like the most that anybody could contribute each year, was $1,500.
That was the maximum.
That's right.
But it was in the 70s. So.
Back in the 70s.
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah. So that was 74. So fast forward, right? Flip the pages on the calendar, and we get to 1981.
So about 7 years later.
Right. It's funny how it doesn't take many years to start changing things.
No.
Right? I mean, we put this little solution in place or this thing, and all of a sudden a little bit of time goes by, and it's like, hey, let's start making some changes. So the Economic Recovery Act expanded IRA availability and deductibility to all workers and their spouses.
Oh, wow.
Right. So now, if I'm employed but my wife isn't, prior to that, she could not have made an IRA contribution, but now she could as a quote-unquote spousal contribution. So, and the contribution in 1981, the limit was increased to $2,000 per year.
Okay.
Yeah. I think we're going to run out of time here in this segment, so...
Yeah, let's just go a little farther and we'll finish up in the next one.
Yeah, we'll finish up history in the next one, right. 1986 rolls around, and there are more changes. Right? Is that like 7 years later? From 1974 to 1981 was 7 years.
Oh, yes.
And then from there to 1986, 7 more years goes by. I'm not sure if there's anything magic about the number 7, but...
That's 5.
Oh, true. So it is. That's right.
It's time for The Weekly Puzzler.
It's time for my favorite part of the show.
What time is that, James?
That is the Weekly Puzzler.
Yes.
Yeah, drum roll, please.
Alrighty.
I'm not very good at it. Joe's much better at drumming. Right? There you go. That's right.
All right, folks. So last week's puzzle was you're in a cold, dark cabin. You only have one match.
Cold and dark.
That's right.
Yeah.
Very cold.
Only one match.
Only one match. There's a candle, a fireplace, and an oil lamp. What do you light first?
The oil lamp.
One of the Joes got it, though.
Oh.
Yeah. He said the right answer, which is the match.
The match.
Can't like anything else if you don't like the match first.
Oh, okay.
What about this?
Where's that drum roll, please? Oh my goodness. All right. So let's try this one. A woman was born in 1975 and died in 1975. She was 22 years old at the time of her death. How?
She was born and died in 1975.
She was born in 1975 and she died in 1975. She was 22 years old at the time of her death. How?
I think I know the answer, Bud. I'll tell you off air.
All right. Well, if you think you know the answer, send your answer to radiopuzzle@wealthdevelopmentcouncil.com, and we'll read the correct answer on the podcast next week.
Thank you. You're listening to Money and Mission on Holy Family Radio, WHYF AM 720.
Welcome back to Money and Mission here on Holy Family Radio, WHYF AM 720, where each week we talk about wealth management built on a foundation of biblical principles and biblical wisdom. I'm James.
And this is Eric.
And we are talking today.
Yeah, let's jump back into the history of individual retirement accounts.
Individual retirement accounts, one of my favorite topics.
That's right.
That's right.
So we got through the inception.
That's right.
And then a couple of the changes through 81, and now we're up to 1986.
1986. So in 1986, you had the Tax Reform Act, and that started phasing out the deductibility of IRA contributions based on household income and employer-sponsored pension coverage.
Phasing out the deductibility. Wow, that's a big year.
Yeah.
For it.
Yeah.
It's a big change.
So, prior to that, or when IRAs were first set up, anybody could put money into an IRA and they could deduct that money
100% of it.
100% of it from their taxable income. And now, in 1986, you have a rule introduced that says if you earn more than a certain amount and you have a pension at work, then your ability to deduct your contributions from your income is going to start phasing out. It's going to get less and less until, depending on your income, you may not get any tax deduction at all. And that really kind of created what was eventually became dubbed as the non-deductible IRA, right? Which is not really a different kind of IRA. It's about the tax treatment of the contributions.
And then it looks like they didn't make any changes for a little while, at least a decade.
That's right. That's right. A lot of years go by. Wow, first we're making changes to this every couple of years, and then, like in 97. You had Senators William Roth and Bob Packwood, who introduced, drum roll,
the Roth IRA.
That's right. It's like Senator Roth needed his name on something. And
what happened to Bob? He got cut out.
He did.
Not the Packwood IRA.
Or the Roth Packwood.
Yeah.
That's right. I mean, we name streets after people. Why shouldn't we name, I don't know. If I was Bob Packwood, I would feel kind of
slighted.
That's right. So, but anyway, these guys came up with the idea that a retirement account should have tax-free withdrawals on the back end.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, that was probably very popular.
But again, Uncle Sam wants it in or out.
In or out. That's right. So
to get the money tax-free on the end, you had to have used...
You had to give up something on the front.
Mm-hmm. Taxed dollars already.
That's right.
To put into it.
That's right. So basically, a Roth IRA really didn't actually get into the tax code for another year, but they started kicking this idea around. and eventually came up with the Roth IRA, where they said, okay, you can make you can make a contribution to this IRA, but we're not going to give you a tax deduction when you put money in.
Gotcha.
So now you have $100,000 of income in our example, and you make a $2,000 contribution to a Roth IRA, you still have $100,000 of taxable income. So your income is not reduced for the IRA contribution, but then as long as you follow the rules on the back end, if the money is in your Roth IRA for at least 5 years and you're over the age of 59 and a half, then you can take all the money out, growth included, and not have to count any of it as taxable.
Mm-hmm.
So you gave up the tax deduction on the front end, and you got a very tax favorable income stream on the back end.
Mm-hmm.
And that was Senator Roth's idea. And that's probably, that was a game changer in terms of how IRAs were treated. And at some level, it kind of opened up a Pandora's box, because then people started coming up with different purposes, different things that you could start doing with IRAs. We'll talk a little bit about that here as we go. So initially there were income limits that restricted taxpayers. As soon as this Roth IRA was set up, then you had people trying to figure out, okay, I already put money into this tax deductible IRA, and I now have this bucket of money sitting there that is going to all be taxed at one point. And I would sure love to get the money from there over into a bucket where it wouldn't be taxed on the back. So I guess everybody starts trying to figure out how to convert that's what they call it, converting their IRA to a Roth IRA.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's just something appealing about being able to have money that is never taxed.
Mm-hmm. And we do help folks with that. Yeah.
Yeah, we do. Yeah. That's right. We try to help that. We try to help clients with that in our practice. So, but anyway, initially there were income limits, which restricted taxpayers so if you were a taxpayer and your income went over $100,000, then you were not allowed to convert from an IRA to a Roth IRA.
Mm-hmm.
But initially, the way the rule worked was that the $100,000 included the money that was being converted. So that got really messy really quickly. So what would happen? Let's just kind of put this on for size, right? Let's say you have $90,000 of income, and you would convert from an IRA to a Roth IRA, and you wanted to give yourself a little bit of room. So you said, all right, I'm going to convert $8,000 this year. Now you would have a $98,000 income. And then what would happen if at the tail end of the year, your employer was like, hey, guess what? We're going to give you a bonus.
Ooh. And
all of a sudden you'd be over 100,000, and then your IRA conversion would be disallowed.
Mm-hmm.
What a mess. What a mess. So people had to be really careful, and then they had to go through all kinds of things like, recharacterizing the conversion that they had just made. And it really was. It was kind of a mess for people who were right on that threshold.
Yeah, I can imagine.
The change in that comes later. Congress put this in place, and initially it was just kind of messy like that. But then in 2001, a law came along that linked the contribution limits to IRAs. It linked that to inflation.
So you can be able to contribute more each year.
That's right.
As inflation goes up.
That's right.
And hopefully wages go up.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where, financial advisors and CPAs and anybody who had memorized how much money could be contributed
went out the window.
Because it started to change every single year. And it just, as soon as you thought you knew what the limit was, then it would change and it would be different. So, but the limit was linked to inflation. And we all know how the government loves to just be honest about inflation, right?
And the revisions.
And the revisions, which the answer is not. So initially, the contribution limits didn't really increase that much. You know, I have to tell you, over the last couple of years, arguably, we've had much higher inflation. So one would think that those IRA contribution limits would have really been jacked up to reflect higher inflation.
Yeah, I guess we don't know exactly how they're linked,
But yeah, that's true. But in any case, the contribution limits started rising because it was linked to inflation. And then in 2002,
so the following year,
changes are coming fast and furious now. Right? A catch-up contribution was put in place.
Well, that's a good change, though.
I guess that's a good change.
Yeah, being able to put more in there if you're over 50.
If you're over 50.
Don't have much time left to save as you would if you were 30.
That's right.
You can stuff an extra 1,000 in there.
Then you can try to catch up.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. You know, we understand the power of compounding.
Mm-hmm.
Still, I mean, if you're listening to this podcast and you're like, oh, cool, you know, we can catch up. You can never go back and really capture the effects of compounding.
Right.
Right. Now, if you're over 50 and you haven't been saving, don't let the fact that you can't go back and capture the effects of compounding, don't let that stop you from doing the right thing now. But catching up is not the same as getting started early.
No.
At all. Okay. Little tangent there. 2005 rolls around, right? And now the Tax Increase Prevention and Reconciliation Act.
Mm-hmm.
I love the names they come up with for these different tax laws. It eliminated the income restriction on converting traditional IRAs to Roth IRAs.
Okay.
So not anybody could.
No matter what your salary is,
right,
you're allowed to convert from the original IRA, which we call a traditional.
That's right.
To the Roth.
To the Roth, right. And not just your salary, but your income altogether. So let's pretend you had, $1 million of income and you had $1 million in an IRA that you were going to convert, and maybe you had income coming from a business. So you could have many millions of dollars of not just salary, but income from all different sources.
Mm-hmm.
And you would be able to convert. You'd have to pay taxes on the amount that you convert, but still you would be able to convert that IRA to a Roth IRA in pursuit of that tax-free income at later years of life.
Well, since we talked about the history of IRAs, and as we discussed yesterday, we talked about two different kinds of IRAs.
Mm-hmm.
Are there more kind of IRAs that we mentioned already?
There are.
Yeah.
And let's try to, we'll just run down through these really briefly because I think we have about 45 seconds left in this segment. But yeah, so we have traditional IRAs and Roth IRAs and education IRAs and SEP IRAs and simple IRAs and SARSEP IRAs. Sorry, Joe. And beneficiary IRAs. There will be a quiz on this later.
Yeah, well, I have some questions on those as well, but you're right, we're out of time.
We're out of time.
So we're going to hear from some of our supporters, and we'll be back shortly. You're listening to Money and Mission on Holy Family Radio.
Welcome back to Money and Mission here on Holy Family Radio, WHYF AM 720, where each week we talk about wealth management built on a foundation of biblical wisdom and principles. I'm James.
And this is Eric. And we have been spending this episode talking about individual retirement accounts. And right before the break, James just ran through a list of flavor of ice creams of these IRAs. And
that's right.
Let's see if we can unpack that a little bit for our listeners.
Yeah. Well, again, and I think we'll probably cover this for a couple of weeks, right? Because as we said, the documents, the IRS booklets that talk about IRAs altogether are like over 130 pages long. So there's a lot to talk about there. And we'll probably stay on this topic until they throw us off. If they show up and say, stop talking about IRAs now. Okay. So we said there were 7 kinds of IRAs and possibly more, but that's what I could think of. So traditional IRAs, Roth IRAs.
Which we spent most of the show talking about so far.
So far, that's right. Education IRAs, SEP IRAs, simple IRAs, which are not simple, right? There's a lot of rules. SAR-SEP IRAs and beneficiary IRAs.
Right, and each one of those IRAs have a separate set of rules, right?
They do. That's right. This is where we could spend the rest of the year talking about that. But we've already been told to keep it to an hour today.
So who might be eligible for those special types of IRAs, and how do they differ from those 2 common ones?
Yeah, so education IRAs. Well, first, it's important to remember that there are income limits and contribution limits to each kind of IRA. So we won't try to get into the minutia of that here today, but just note that the purpose of an education IRA is to save up money so that whoever is the beneficiary of that might be able to use those dollars for qualified education purposes at some point in the future. So, many people have probably heard of education accounts, Section 529 accounts. Well, an education IRA is similar in that people put money into that IRA to save up money for somebody's education. And then when the student arrives at a point where they're drawing money out for qualified education purposes, then they get special tax treatment as long as they're using the money for its intended purpose, like that. So that's an education IRA. A SEP IRA SEP stands for Simplified Employee Pension. But a SEP IRA really is intended and is designed for people who are self-employed. So, if somebody's a real estate agent or a consultant or some self-employed person like that, then gets to make a higher contribution as a percentage of their income. So, again, that's kind of a tricky rule. So we always really advise people to make sure that they're working with a qualified financial planner and a CPA to make sure that they are getting the best contribution they're maximizing their contribution tax efficiency. So simple IRAs are designed for employers who have less than 100 employees, and people can make either a percentage of their income as a contribution to that or a fixed dollar amount. But again, there's caps. There's a limit of how much can be contributed to that simple IRA each year. And don't memorize the limit because, again, it seems like it changes.
We've stopped.
That's right, yeah. So, but one of the places, well, in a couple minutes, we'll get to places where you can go to find more information about IRAs, including limits on contributions and so on. SAR-SEPs really are kind of a dinosaur, if you will. SAR-SEPs were the predecessor to simple IRAs, and there, again, it was designed for small employers, but it was built on the same percentage of income contribution as a SEP was. Again, it was just designed for small employers. I believe it was employers who had 25 or fewer employees. But it's been a number of years since SARSEPs were available. You still find some of them hanging out there, but most employers who are in that space, if you will, are using simples today instead of SARSEPs. Beneficiary IRAs are simply a way of a beneficiary or someone who is named as the beneficiary on someone else's IRA now receives that money, but then there are specific rules about how quickly the money that was in the IRA needs to be distributed. And that's based on the on the beneficiary's age. And that's all that we'll say for now, because that could be a week-long discussion all by itself. So
all these different plans and all these different rules, it sounds like it can get complex, huh?
Oh, very, very quickly. That's right. That's right. So, again, at the risk of redundancy, we always really just, you must be advised to make sure you're working with qualified advisors to help navigate through those rules. So,
right. But remember, it's just a tool, right? Each one of those.
Well, that's true. Yeah. I mean, because the complexity of that can kind of be really scary
sure.
But it is a tool. An IRA is a tool. And the money that's in that tool, that the tool represents, can help you accomplish your goals. It can help you move on the path to this mission that God has called you to in your life.
Mm-hmm. So those are all the different IRA accounts that one can hold. What sort of investments can you hold inside of those buckets, like you said earlier?
Oh, wow.
How much time we got left, Joe?
That's right. How much time? Yeah, we want to make sure that we leave at least a couple minutes to reference, places where you can go to find information. But let's dive into what you can invest in. And this becomes very interesting. If you would go to a bank and set up an IRA, you would probably have your money be in a bank product then. And bank products tend to be things like certificates of deposit. So it's possible that, let's say you went to a bank and you set up an IRA and the folks at the bank put you in a certificate of deposit, and maybe you're just earning an interest rate like 4% or something like that. You might conclude, wow, if I set up an IRA, it's something I do at the bank and I get 4%. But if you're looking for growth,
it's not going to give you that.
It's not going to give you that. You could reach really an incorrect conclusion because the only experience you ever had with an IRA is whatever you got at the bank.
Mm-hmm. So what about like mutual funds then?
Well, yes, mutual fund companies are eligible institutions, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
So they're eligible. The IRS has deemed them eligible to set up these tax-preferred savings accounts. But if you do that at a mutual fund company, then you are going to have an IRA that's invested in mutual funds.
Right.
Right.
I'm not going to sell you another bank CD.
That's right. So now your IRA is going to perform just like whatever mutual funds you just bought inside of that IRA, which again could lead to an erroneous conclusion. Like, let's say that you invested in a mutual fund in an IRA right at the very beginning of 2020. And a month later, the market caves in because COVID comes along. You could conclude, oh my goodness, this IRA thing is not for me because I just lost a ton of money. I had all this fluctuation in my IRA. But that wasn't the fault of the IRA. That was because you owned an investment that fluctuated
with the market.
That's right. So we look at all these different possibilities, things that you could be invested in, and we think it's important to know that different kinds of IRAs have different investments. So I'll hit just a couple more things, and we'll need to pick up on this next week, but you could have a brokerage account as well. There are things called self-directed IRAs, and yes, you're correct. Things get very complicated very quickly. That's right. But, some places you can go to find good information on IRAs. One of the best places, depending on your definition of best, is to go to www.irs.gov. www.irs.gov. And correct, you will be on the IRS's website. In the search field at the top right-hand corner of the page, you can type in the number 590.
Publication 590.
Publication 590. You type that in, and when you hit enter, then several links will come up for you to choose from. One link will say Publication 590A.
Mm-hmm.
Publication 590A contains all the rules, or I guess as many rules as they could fit in a publication, related to making IRA contributions.
So A is money coming in.
A is money coming in.
Mm-hmm.
That publication is 61 pages long. Publication 590B is all about money going out.
Mm-hmm.
The rules related to distributions. That is 69 pages long. The IRS updates those publications each year. So if you really want to stay on top of it, about June of every year, you can hop out to the IRS's website and read the updated publication 590.
It's melatonin and a publication 590.
That's right. But, the IRS doesn't, is not in the business of producing sales material or something. So you'll be reading the rules, and we'll talk more about this next week as well. It's just fascinating how time flies by when you have this kind of an interesting topic to be looking at. But again, remember, in spite of the complexity, an IRA is a tool. Money, and in general, is a tool.
That's right.
It's a test, and it's a testimony as well. So we'll look forward to being with you again next week.
That's right. We're all out of time for this week's show. We will pick up next week. This has been great, James. Thanks for all the information. You have been listening to Money and Mission here on Holy Family Radio.